Welcome back to my channel. Today I want to show you one of the very first Chromebooks released back in 2012. This is a fully ARM-based computer, not very powerful at all, but back in the day you could actually run fairly modern Linux versions on it. But the big question is, can we install a modern Linux distro on it today and still do something interesting, like rendering in Blender? We'll find out, so stay tuned. First, a few words about this machine. This is a small Samsung XE303C Chromebook released in 2012, which means this ARM laptop is already about 14 years old. As you can see, this Chromebook originally belonged to some school in warm, sunny California. Poor kids back then couldn't even play Roblox on devices like this, so I guess it was considered perfectly fine for education. All those years definitely left their mark on the exterior. The case has scratches and plenty of cracks. And to be fair, most of them are actually my fault, because years ago I tried really hard to open it and explore what's inside. The scratches on the lid came from the protective case that originally came with it. Over the years, the rubber on that case started to degrade, especially since I used it as a coffee stand. Yeah, not my proudest moment. On the outside, we've got a 3.5mm audio jack, an SD card slot, and on the back there are two USB ports, including a fast USB 3 port plus an HDMI output. There's also this fake looking slot, probably meant for a SIM card, but it was never used in this model, so it's just covered with a rubber plug. Inside, this Chromebook has a dual-core Exynos processor, 2 GB of RAM, and it runs an old version of Chrome OS, an operating system built entirely around the browser. Apps here are basically web apps, and aside from browsing the web, you can really only download media or play it from a USB drive or an SD card. Many years ago, there was a Chrome extension that allowed you to take Android APK files and turn them into Chrome extensions, so you could actually run simple mobile apps on this Chromebook, including lightweight emulators and games, but that was a long time ago, and this method doesn't work anymore. By the way, the Chrome version here is also quite old. While some websites still work, like Reddit or even YouTube, many others don't. Cloud gaming services don't work, Google Colab doesn't work, and even ChatGPT loads with a broken interface where you can't really do anything. So realistically, the only way to use this laptop properly today, just like in the past, is by running Linux on it. That's possible thanks to terminal access through Chrome Shell, which you get by enabling developer mode. From there, all the heavy lifting is done by a tool called Crouton, which creates containers with different Linux distributions. Using the list command, you can see which distros are available and how up-to-date they are. Back in the day, you could install something like a fresh Ubuntu version and enjoy a pretty decent desktop experience. But does that still work today? Well, kind of. About 5 years ago, I installed Kali Linux on this machine, and it updated just fine. At that point, this wasn't really a Chromebook anymore. It was a super spy hack book. Well, almost. But time passed, and today I couldn't install Kali Linux anymore, just like many other distros from the list. Luckily, the only option that worked for me was Debian 11 Bullseye, released in 2021. It still supports modern applications, which is great. After a fairly quick installation, all you need to do is run a command to launch the graphical environment. And just like that, we're on the Debian XFCE desktop. By the way, you can switch between Chrome OS and Linux using hotkeys. There's also an option to fully replace Chrome OS with Debian, but I'm not doing that today. Everything that works here would work there too, and whatever doesn't work here wouldn't magically start working either. As you can see, the system uses around 500 megabytes of RAM, which is pretty low. We also have swap enabled using the internal SSD to help with memory, and it's kind of funny that the NVIDIA driver management utility is installed here, even though there's obviously no NVIDIA graphics in this machine. Now we can finally install other browsers like Firefox or a modern version of Chromium, which I already installed earlier. Websites work properly, though not perfectly. Reddit and YouTube both work, but don't expect miracles. This machine won't handle full HD video anyway, although 720p should be manageable. By the way, sound works here despite what this speaker icon might suggest. Now let's test the HDMI output. I'll connect an external monitor and see how Linux handles it. And yes, the image shows up, which is great. Let's plug in a mouse and try a proper desktop experience. As you can see, everything works. We can comfortably scroll websites on a big, or at least relatively big, monitor and enjoy complete silence because this is ARM, and that's awesome. I did try using both displays at the same time, but unfortunately mirroring can't be disabled here. The image is duplicated, and while this might be fixable through the terminal, I don't want to waste too much time on that. Some websites that didn't work in Chrome OS now work perfectly fine here, including ChatGPT and a few others. However, there are still limitations. I tried cloud gaming and GeForce Now finally loads, but once I enter a gaming session, I only get a black screen. I tried another game and got the same result. Interestingly, I can see the cursor and it looks like something is loading, but as you can see, the stream reports 0 frames per second, so nothing is actually playing. I'm pretty sure the same would happen with xCloud. One of the main problems here is the lack of graphics acceleration, and that's the real bottleneck. Even if you flash this Chromebook with special Linux builds, this issue would still be there. So the question is, can we install Blender and render at least something? I installed Blender and tried launching it the only way that did anything at all, through the terminal. Unfortunately, it didn't work. Even software rendering requires some level of video acceleration, and I couldn't find any way around that. So what's the alternative? The answer is Google Colab. With it, we get access to a Tesla T4 GPU, which is roughly comparable to an NVIDIA RTX 20 series card, along with a decent CPU and plenty of RAM. Let's copy a test Blender project from a USB drive onto this Chromebook and try rendering it. By the way, Linux File Manager can actually show a preview of the 3D scene in this project, which raises a very fair question. How does that work, and why can't Blender launch at all? Whatever, let's just use Google Colab. We run the scripts, upload our file, and after a while we start rendering using OptiX. So this should be fairly fast. Oh, and by the way, this is an animation, so yeah, we'll have to wait a bit.
A few moments later.
Alright, some time has passed, and we now have the rendered video, which we simply download back to the Chromebook. Everything worked, and honestly, the result looks great. So in a way, you really can render on a Chromebook like this, it's just a matter of how you do it. By the way, I've already been using Linux here for more than 2 hours, and as you can see, the battery still has enough charge for at least another 2. Battery life here is genuinely impressive, especially after all these years, and I haven't turned this Chromebook on in months, maybe even years. That's a great result. So what can we say about this Chromebook today? Obviously, in its default state, it's completely obsolete and basically useless. It's cool that you can still run full Linux distributions on it and install modern applications. It's also nice to have a backup laptop that can at least do something, but hardware limitations and time take their toll. Eventually, even the last supported Linux distributions will lose support, and the practical value of this machine will drop to 0. Still, for now, it occasionally helps me render videos using Google Colab and also works as a nice extra power bank, especially since power outages in my area can last a really long time. I hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to support it with a comment or even share your own experience using Chromebooks from the last decade. Thanks for watching and see you soon.